Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfics. This will be the continuation of Fallen Baby Birds. This will be Part 7, Chapter 7, entitled The Quirk Behind the Sunshine. Izuku couldn't stop shivering. The boy who just turned 6 4 months ago was bundled up in a fluffy jacket and scarf, being held close by his brother who was leaning against Touya onto a park bench. It was a cold day, and by the looks of it, it was close to snow weather. So Izuku shivering is normal, logically thinking, of course. At least that seemed to be the case at the moment. "Want to hold my hand, Zuzu?" Touya questions, raising one of his hands and offering it to his best friend's little brother. Izuku's reluctant to remove his hands from his personal warmth, but decides to reach forward, immediately shivering from the cold that nips at his fingers. He's very gently taking Touya's hand, eyes widening at the pure warmth that it holds. The boy, whose hair is almost fully white now, reaches the other hand up and wraps it around the small, shaky hands. "Better?" Touya hums and smiles softly when Izuku nods. Thank you," the curly-haired chicklet squeaks out, leaning further into his brother's chest when the winged boy just leaves a small kiss on his forehead. "All right, boys, we're heading home now," Hizashi hollers moments later, practically skipping over to them while Aizawa stares down the hot chocolate the loud man holds, seriously worried that they were going to spill over. Keigo smiles brightly at his dads, standing up from the bench and letting Izuku down. Touya doesn't let go of one of Izuku's hands as he also stands, and the little boy seems thankful for it. "One hot cocoa for the sweet little bunny." Hizashi hands a cup to Izuku, who takes his with his free hand, mumbling a quiet "thank you," and taking a sip, smiling at the sweetness and the warmth of it. "One for the fierce hawk." Keigo sticks his tongue out at his pops, and he takes the cup regardless of his reddened cheeks. "And one for the inverted Jack Frost." Touya snorts, shaking his head as he grabs the cup and takes a long, loud slurp on purpose. "Okay." Aizawa takes a sip of his coffee. "Let's get back before Izuku freezes." And it comes off as a blunt joke. Izuku even giggles softly, but there's something that makes the 6-year-old feel uneasy. His hands weren't as cold with Toya's warmth and the hot cocoa, but they weren't actually warm either. At least, it's definitely not the warmth that he remembers. "You still cold, Chicklet?" Keigo questions, crawling across the floor from where he was leaning against the wall in their room, stopping right in front of Izuku, who's sitting in one of their bean bags. The boy's teeth are chattering, and he's clutching a blanket around himself tightly. The hawk's eyebrows furrow in concern as the chicklet nods, quietly looking over to Touya, who was also staring with a worried expression. The blanket doesn't help," Izuku stutters out with a whine, looking over with teary eyes at Touya, who steps off the bed and makes his way over to the bunny, and the fire user wraps his arms gently around Izuku and pulls him in close, using his quirk to warm up his body. Izuku leans heavily into Touya, snuggling into his shirt and letting out another whine when it barely did anything to stop the shivers. The white and red-haired boy raises his hand and feels Izuku's forehead, frowning when he feels a heat that wasn't coming from himself. "I think he's sick," Touya murmurs, blinking over at Keigo when the winged boy just stands up quickly with a look of brotherly worry on his face. He's only been sick once. What should I... Keigo bites his lip, glancing over to their bedroom door. I'm gonna go get Pops." The hawk dashes out of the room before Touya can say anything, but it doesn't matter as much, seeing as he was going to recommend the same thing. Oya. Izuku's hand grips on Toya's shirt tightly. The other boy is looking down when Izuku tugs on the fabric. "Tummy hurts." "It's okay, Green Bean. Your papa will be here soon, okay? He'll make it better." Touya rubs Izuku's back soothingly, and the poor boy looks like he really wants to believe him, but then Izuku's small hand comes up to his mouth, and his cheeks puff out. His face takes on a green tint, and Toya's eyes widen. And that's how Touya got vomit all over his shirt. Shit, well, that's not important right now. Sorry. Izuku chokes on a sob, and Touya quickly takes Izuku's face into his hands, gently wiping off the vomit around his lips no matter how gross it was. "It's okay, Zuzu. I'm not mad, I promise." Touya wishes he could wipe away the disbelief on the little boy's face, but all he can do right now is reassure and hope for the best. "You'll be okay. Let's go ahead and stand up, yeah?" Touya stands from where he's on the beanbag, grimacing slightly at the vomit that hits the carpet, but he refuses to truly react as he helps Izuku up, guiding him slowly to the door and praying that Hizashi and Keigo would be here any minute. His prayers are answered very quickly as Hizashi comes through the door with a thermometer and a very worried look. That look only deepens at the sight of the stain forming on Touya and Izuku's shirts, the man taking over in a swift movement, picking up Izuku and smiling softly at him. "Why don't you go get cleaned up, Touya? I'll take care of the bunny here." Touya nods slowly, watching Hizashi leave the room with Izuku. The boy's eyes meet Keigo just as he walks in, the hawk giving Izuku's hand a little squeeze for comfort before letting his pops go. Then Keigo freezes at the sight of his best friend. The hawk's face seems to crumble after a minute, but he tries to keep it together and walks forward and passes Touya to the fire user's bag of clothing. He takes out another pair of pajama pants and a shirt, turning back to his best friend and offering them to him. "You can, use the bathroom, get a shower, and I'll clean up the beanbag and the rug." Keigo mumbles, voice shaky and concerning Touya to no end. "Yeah, I'll do that. Just don't worry, okay? It'll be all right." Touya reassures, albeit awkwardly, but trying his best all the same. When he receives a nod from his best friend, he lets out a small sigh and leaves the room to go shower, pretending not to hear the crying coming from Keigo's dad's room. He also pretends not to hear the statement of, "Shouta, his temperature's too low," which doesn't make sense because his forehead had been burning, as that's not something Keigo needs to be fretting over right now. He'll let Hizashi take care of Izuku. He can take the job of taking care of Keigo, all while trying to soothe his own worry. After his shower, Touya manages to convince Keigo to lay down with him in bed, murmuring quiet nonsense to the hawk as to keep him grounded. He can't recall the last time Keigo had been this down, except maybe, right, when the hawk had told him that he told his parents about Endeavor, but even then he seemed to jump back up real quick. Touya hopes the same to happen this time as well. I don't... Izuku never... Keigo buries his face into Toya's shoulder, his best friend bringing up a hand in order to run it through blonde locks. "He's only been sick once, and I've never been sick. The commission made sure I wouldn't be, and Dad and Pops take care of me. I'm scared. I'm scared of getting sick, and I'm terrified of Izuku getting sick. The first time wasn't as bad because Izuku just had a bad tummy ache, but now he looks so pale. He looks how he did when I first found him, and I don't want him to be hurt like that again. I promised he'd never be hurt like that again." Keigo's hand grips harder onto Toya's arm, and he suddenly freezes. Touya looks in concern, thumb gently running over the hawk's forehead. "Kei, it'll be okay. He has you and your dads now. He'll always have you guys. It's not like he's alone, yeah? He has people he can rely on." Touya sits up in the bed, head tilting when Keigo's hand doesn't let go of his arm, only tightening further and making Touya frown at the slight pressure from the grip. "I'm not leaving either, I promise." The multicolored-haired boy lays his hand on top of the blonde's, startling when Keigo lets out a sudden sob. "Kei? I can't let go. I'm sorry, I can't." Keigo shuts his eyes tightly, trying to will the tears away but failing miserably. "I don't know why, I just can't. I just grabbed and I can't—" Hey, I don't mind, Kei." Touya merely continues his ministrations of comfort, hands running through hair and stroking his back. He doesn't say another word for a bit, staying quiet and letting Keigo calm down. Keigo's grip starts to lighten by the time Aizawa walks through the door, both of the boys looking up at the tired man who's looking worriedly at them both. Touya feels Keigo's hands let go as he finally has the hawk fumbling off the bed, tumbling over toward his dad and practically jumping into his arms. Touya feels something pang in his chest at the sight, a longing for having a good parental figure like Keigo did, but he pushes it aside, face softening at Keigo relaxing when his dad's arms encase him in a protective and a comforting hug. He needed this. "Is Izuku?" Keigo's voice is muffled from where his face is buried in Aizawa's shirt, but his dad hears it nonetheless. "He's going to be okay," Aizawa says. Keigo starts to relax. "But he had to go to the hospital." When Keigo freezes and looks up to Aizawa with wide eyes, the man is quick to crouch down and look his son in the eyes. "He will be okay. We think this might be a quirk-related issue, which means we aren't equipped to deal with it here. If it is quirk-related, it means that we'll need to do what we can to help him with it when he comes back." "Oh, okay." Keigo stutters out reluctantly, not sure how he feels about being away from his brother right now. "Will he be gone long?" Touya questions, earning Aizawa's gaze directed at him. When the tired man's eyes widen, he blinks in confusion and follows his eyes down to his arm, which has a blossoming bruise on it in the shape of a hand. Oh, he's not too surprised he didn't feel that, but was Keigo's grip really that strong? "It's fine. He couldn't let go." The hawk looks over when hearing his name, looks to Touya and freezes once more, eyes slowly widening in guilt, and Touya knows that look. And he shouldn't be feeling bad about this. It wasn't his fault. It's not your fault, Ki, Touya says sternly, pulling his sleeve down over the bruise. Before Keigo could respond, Aizawa lets out a sigh that seems exhausted, but there's also that secret fondness to it, and picks up the winged boy. Keigo lets out a confused noise, huffing when he's dropped back onto the bed, but again, before he can say anything, Aizawa gives him a look, and Touya hugs Keigo around his middle, effectively silencing him. Izuku should be back sometime tomorrow. He'll have to stay the night since it's late, and again, if his illness is quirk-related, then I'm assuming he'll need to stay for a few checkups. Hizashi's staying with him, and we'll go see him as soon as we can in the morning. Aizawa glances to Touya as he speaks, the boy nodding when Keigo doesn't, the hawk just fidgeting silently. Now then, Keigo. The winged boy looks up, settling down a little when Aizawa puts his hand on his head. Can you tell me why you couldn't let go of Toya's arm? I don't know why, I just couldn't. It's like I just grabbed and couldn't let go. Keigo bites his lip, leaning back into Toya's warmth. Back, in the Hero Commission, sometimes when I got upset my hands would clench, but I never grabbed onto anything. They didn't like it when I did, and I was too scared to try, but I think I really wanted to hold something. Keigo flexes his fingers out, fighting the urge to clench them, just thinking about his past. He blinks as Aizawa takes the smaller's hands into his own, stopping his little hand twitches. We can look into it, but I have a strong feeling it's quirk-related. You and your brother. His tired dad sighs tiredly. When you feel like grabbing onto something, let me know. It seems stress-induced, and I don't want you to end up stuck anywhere just because you can't let go, okay? Yeah, okay. Keigo agrees, shivering inwardly at the thought of getting stuck somewhere like school, or even in the middle of nowhere. Oh, God. Okay. Aizawa nods, standing up and giving Keigo another hair ruffle. You two get ready for bed. I'll wake you both up early so that we can go see Izuku. The tired man then ruffles Toya's hair, the boy rolling his eyes without any real malice. Come and get me if you need anything, even if I'm asleep. And with that he walks out of the room, leaving the door creaked open so that Keigo felt like he could come get him at any time. Keigo glances back at Touya, who's staring down at him with a firm expression. You're not gonna let me stay awake, are you? The hawk pouts, that pout deepening when Toya's grip tightens. Let's go brush our teeth. Touya stands up from the bed, and Keigo thinks that he's going to be able to escape his grip, but Touya doesn't even let him touch the floor. He just keeps him lifted up, struggling a bit, but managing to basically carry him over to the bathroom, and it makes Keigo want to giggle, but he's too tired to really do so he just gives up any fight that he wants to muster up just to annoy Touya. They end up staying quiet for the rest of the night, Touya getting Keigo to sleep just by running a hand through his hair. The boys avoid nightmares, luckily, and wake up an hour before Aizawa comes to get them. During that hour, Keigo rambles in a quiet voice to Touya about really just anything, all while grabbing one of Izuku's onesies so that the boy could change into it when he gets home and had a nice bath. Touya, meanwhile, convinces Keigo to bring Izuku's favorite stuffed bunny, promising that they wouldn't lose it at all. Aizawa doesn't comment when he finds them awake. He just tells them to go get ready and that they'll leave in 30 minutes. Keigo's the first to enter Izuku's hospital room. His eyes meet his pop's first, who smiles at him gently, then they flicker over to his little brother, who sat up immediately in bed upon seeing his big brother. His small hands raise up in the air, and he makes a desperate noise that sets Keigo into action, walking forward with quick strides and hugging Izuku tightly. The small boy buries his head into Keigo's chest, hiding himself in his brother's warmth. Keigo can't get a word out of the chicklet. Izuku's staying quiet until they're home, and Dad coaxes Izuku to sign what he wants to eat. Even then, Izuku just says, "It's okay. Anything's fine." He got his quirk, was all his pop said to the hawk and Touya, saying that he'd explain more at home when Izuku was at his best. The hospital wasn't exactly the best place for the small boy. His anxiety spiked as Izuku thought about his parents or Keigo ever having to go there when injured, and the fact that he had to go there himself made him panicky. "Okay, kiddos," Pop says as he sits down on the couch, the family choosing to eat in the living room rather than the kitchen so the kids could relax. Izuku sits on his big brother's lap as Keigo makes sure that he eats and tries his hardest to make sure Izuku doesn't start crying or anything like that. Touya sits next to Keigo on his left and Aizawa on the hawk's right, both providing a warm presence while Hizashi sits on the couch chair closest to the couch itself. Little Bunny here got his quirk sometime yesterday when we were out in the cold. Hizashi starts, placing his cup of coffee down on the coffee table after taking a small sip of it. Izuku sinks a little more into Keigo's chest, eyes averting to stare at the floor and making his big brother concerned. It was the cold that made it activate, and his quirk went a little too strong because of it and made him sick. It's not his fault at all, and using your quirk for the first time will always be tricky. And Keigo wants to comment on that, wanting so badly to jump in and ask what Izuku's quirk was, but he remains patient, grip tightening ever so slightly on Izuku in a protective manner. We're still not entirely sure what Izuku's quirk is exactly, or what it can do, but we do know what he's sensitive to, and what can hurt him. So we can now avoid those things. So here's what we're going to do. Hizashi stands up and walks the little distance between him and Izuku, crouching down in front of him and smiling softly. You'll need to avoid the cold and hot weather, and we'll need to make sure that your room is set at room temp. Hizashi says pointedly at both Keigo and Izuku, eyes then landing on Touya. You'll need to not warm him up any more when he gets too cold, okay? I know how tempting it can be, but if he gets too cold, we'll need to warm him up slowly. Otherwise, his quirk will make him sick again. Same goes for if he's too hot. He needs to cool down slowly. Touya nods at that, even if reluctantly. Izuku just continues to look at the floor, even as Touya runs a hand through his curls. We'll do our best to help him to learn his quirk safely. For now, though, he'll have to dress warmly when he goes to school, and he'll have to not be too far from Shouta here, just in case of an emergency and he needs to have his quirk erased. If Shouta's away, then we'll do our best to keep Izuku not too hot and not too cold, all right? At the words of agreement that Hizashi receives, and a few more rules set in place, the loud man goes to get started on a late lunch, and Aizawa takes Izuku from Keigo, the winged boy reluctantly letting him go and watching the two disappear into their parents' room. Keigo knows it's for the best. Izuku clearly wasn't in the best headspace, and he needed his dad to tell him that it's okay, but God, he was going to spoil him as soon as he can. He deserves only the best, and Keigo hates that he can't give that to him right now. Touya ends up distracting him again and planning a full sleepover for Izuku, most likely inviting Hitoshi and Toya's younger brother Shouta. It's a nice little plan, and they even get Hizashi in on the planning, the loud man agreeing to set something up. They're sure Izuku will appreciate the distraction. The next few weeks go by slowly, but by the time Izuku figures his quirk out, it feels like it all went by so quickly. As it turns out, his quirk has to ironically do with the temperature. Not too surprising, with how his quirk reacted so badly to the cold the first time, but they're all so glad to have figured it out. Specifically, Izuku can tell you exactly what the temperature is in a room or an area. He's extra sensitive to it all, and he's basically a walking thermometer. It's going to take some time, but he is able to turn it off with enough practice, and that's a relief to the family because it sucks to see the boy shiver so easily in the cold or sweat whenever the heat decides to not turn off at night. It seems that the quirk formed from a mixture of his biological father's and his biological father's mother's. The heat mixed in with whatever the lady had given him gave him a weak quirk, but a very useful quirk. Izuku's dad and pops encouraged the fact that it's useful, because if you're going to be a hero, sometimes you need to warm up or cool down a victim, and Izuku can find the exact spaces he needs to do that in any location. It also helps the boy know if someone has a fever or not, and Izuku at some point in the future outs Keigo for hiding his fever. They're unsure if the quirk can do more, but Aizawa, of course, as always, reassures the boy that they'll figure it out. No matter what, though, Izuku's just happy to have a quirk, and at first it made him sad to think that he had a quirk that just hurt him, insecurities coming up and making him think that his parents and brother wouldn't like him anymore because of it. They made it very clear that they'll always love him, however, and settled Izuku's insecurities down to rest once more. The little boy is extra happy nowadays, always rambling about other people's quirks as well as his own, writing rapidly in his little notebooks over his theories that he has and ways everyone can use their quirks. The boy was certainly smart. Now, sometime in the summer, Izuku, Hitoshi, and Shouta sit on the floor in Izuku's room. The curly-haired boy is coloring with his friends quietly, just enjoying their presence as the two boys lean more towards silence, and Izuku was okay with that. It was even better whenever Izuku felt the need to ramble and they just listened, never judging the small boy and even adding their own input to show that they were listening every so often. It was sweet. Hey, Izuku. Shouta gains the boy's attention. Izuku blinked up at the dual-haired boy and tilting his head in question. Your dads. They're married, right? When Izuku nods with a small but confused smile, Shouta hums. Do you think 3 people could get married? The boy watches as Izuku puts on his thinking face, and Hitoshi looks up from his coloring as well. Yes, I think so. Izuku leans forward a bit. Why? Shouta takes both Hitoshi and Izuku's hands, the two boys' eyes widening in confusion. So we can get married. If you want to, Shouta, I really like both of you, and you're really good friends, so I'd like to marry you both. Izuku giggles, bouncing in place like a bunny. Then both Shouta and Izuku turn to Hitoshi, who just looks down with reddened cheeks and nods. Their attention all then turns abruptly toward the bedroom door, where they hear a squeal, blinking at Keigo, who's clenching his chest, and acting like he just saw the cutest thing, in which he did. Touya's behind him looking amused, eyebrows raised at the three, and ignoring Keigo's dying noises. The now fully white-haired boy, having decided to just fully dye the red out of his hair because why not, watches Izuku jump up and dash over to Keigo, grabbing the boy's hands and smiling really big. "Me, Sho, and Hitoshi are going to get married," Izuku announces, beaming happily as he does so, and making Keigo almost choke on the pure serotonin he was giving him. "Oh yeah? Does this mean that I get to be your best man at the wedding?" Keigo questions, all while still trying not to die and smiling ever so fondly at Izuku's rapid nod. "As long as I can be your best man at your and Toya's wedding," Izuku practically chirps out. Keigo blue screens, and Touya chokes on his spit. Aizawa pretends like he wasn't in the hallway recording, and Hizashi has to go through his radio show, not squealing about the video his husband sent to him. All right, everyone, this concludes Chapter 7 of Fallen Baby Birds. Chapter 8 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying this one, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.